happens when a beloved British actress decides she's had enough of being disrespected on live television. It only took 39 seconds for Lorraine Kelly to go from daytime darling to the most talked about TV bully in the country. This is the story of how one arrogant comment changed everything. The morning started like any other at the ITV studios in London. The air was filled with the usual pre-show buzz, makeup artists rushing between dressing rooms, producers checking clipboards, and camera crew members adjusting their equipment for the perfect shot. Julie Walters, the chair star of MMA Mia and Billy Elliot, arrived at the studio at 7 in the morning, 2 full hours before her scheduled appearance. She'd been doing television interviews for decades and knew the routine by heart. Check in with security, head to hair and makeup, review talking points with a producer, and then wait in the green room until it was time to go on. But this appearance was different. Julie wasn't there to promote a film or talk about her latest acting project. She was scheduled to appear on the Lorraine show to discuss her latest charity work with underprivileged children in Manchester. She'd been doing this kind of work quietly for years, away from the cameras, away from the spotlight, funding reading programs out of her own pocket, and spending weekends volunteering at community centers. But a day she wanted to use her platform, her name recognition, to shine a light on something that mattered. The program needed funding, needed volunteers, needed awareness, and if her celebrity could help with that, then she was willing to step into the spotlight. In the makeup chair, Julie had chatted warmly with the artist who'd been doing her face for years. They talked about books they'd been reading, about the artist's daughter who was struggling with school, about everything except what Julie would be discussing on air. That conversation would come soon enough. When she was finally ready, hair perfectly styled and makeup flawless, Julie made her way to the green room where a production assistant offered her tea and biscuits. She accepted the tea, declined the biscuits, and settled into the uncomfortable sofa to wait. At 8:45, a nervous young producer poked her head into the green room. "Dame Walters, we're ready for you on set if you'll just follow me." Julie smiled at the girl, who couldn't have been more than 23 or 24, and followed her down the bright corridor toward the studio floor. The walk felt longer than usual. Julie had done hundreds of interviews over her career, maybe thousands, but something about today felt off. She couldn't put her finger on it, just a nagging feeling in the back of her mind that this wasn't going to go the way she'd planned. As Julie settled into the bright orange sofa that had become synonymous with the Lorraine show, she took in her surroundings. The studio was smaller than it looked on television, something that always surprised first-time guests but which Julie had long since gotten used to. The lights were blindingly bright, necessary for the cameras, but uncomfortable for the person sitting beneath them. Lorraine Kelly sat across from her in the host chair, positioned at a slight angle, so she could easily look at both her guest and the camera. That signature smile was already plastered across her face, the one that had made her a household name in Britain's daytime darling. To Lorraine's left sat 2 of her regular panelists, people Julie had seen on the show before but never met in person. Marcus Chin was the show's fashion critic, a tall man in his mid-30s with perfectly styled hair and an expensive-looking suit. He had a reputation for being catty but harmless, the kind of personality that worked well for television commentary on celebrity outfits and red carpet appearances. Bethany Price sat next to him, the show's celebrity gossip columnist. She was younger than Marcus, maybe late 20s, with bright red lipstick and an eager expression that suggested she was still excited to be on television every morning. Both were there to add their commentary during the interview. Though from the looks on their faces as Julie sat down, neither seemed particularly interested in charity work. They were here for the entertainment factor, for the light banter and easy laughs that filled most morning television segments. A floor manager counted down from 5, his fingers ticking off the seconds until they were live. Julie straightened her posture, put on her professional smile, and prepared to talk about something she genuinely cared about. Their light on the camera blinked on, and they were broadcasting to millions of viewers across the country. The cameras went live and Lorraine launched into her introduction without missing a beat. "Well, hello there, everyone. We have Dame Julie Walters with us this morning, and I'm sure she's here to tell us all about something terribly important," Lorraine said, her tone dripping with a kind of false sweetness that immediately put Julie on edge. Julie's smile wavered slightly, but she pressed on, determined not to let Lorraine's tone throw her off track. "Good morning, Lorraine. Yes, I wanted to talk about the children's literacy program we've been running in Manchester for the past 3 years now. We started with just 15 children in a single community center, kids who were reading well below their grade level, some who couldn't read at all. We've seen such incredible results, truly transformative results with kids who are struggling to read even basic sentences. Now they're reading chapter books, writing their own stories, developing a genuine love for literature, and we're trying to expand the program to other cities, to Birmingham and Liverpool and Glasgow. Anywhere there are children who need this kind of support. As Julie spoke, her passion was evident in every word. This wasn't rehearsed marketing speak or carefully crafted sound bites. This was genuine enthusiasm for work that mattered to her. Her eyes lit up when she mentioned the children, and her hands moved expressively as she described the program's success. Any normal host would have leaned into that energy, would have asked follow-up questions about the children's progress or the expansion plans. But Lorraine wasn't looking at Julie with interest or curiosity. She was looking at her with something that resembled barely concealed contempt. Lorraine leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs in that deliberate way that suggested she was about to say something cutting. She let the silence hang for just a moment too long, creating an uncomfortable pause that made even the crew shift nervously. When she finally spoke, her voice carried that false sweetness that anyone who'd worked in television long enough could recognize as dangerous. Literacy programs, right? How absolutely quaint, isn't it? Tell me, Julie, and I mean this with all sincerity, is this one of those things where celebrities need to feel good about themselves? You know what I mean? The whole giving back nonsense that every famous person seems to be doing these days. Is this your version of that? Your way of feeling like you've done your bit for society while the rest of us are out here working real jobs? The words hung in the air like poison? The studio went so quiet that you could hear the hum of the cameras, the soft breathing of the crew members who'd frozen in place. Even the cameramen seemed to stop moving, their professional instincts telling them that something significant was happening, that this was the kind of television moment that people would be talking about for days. Bethany Price let out a nervous little laugh that sounded more like a hiccup, clearly uncomfortable, but not willing to challenge her host, not willing to risk her position on the panel by speaking up. Marcus Chin just stared at his notes, pretending to be absolutely fascinated by something written there. His jaw clenched tight enough that you could see the muscle working beneath his skin. Julie's face hardened. I'm sorry. What did you just say? Oh, come now, Julie, don't be so sensitive. I'm just saying that sometimes these charity things feel a bit performative, like you're all competing to see who can look the most caring. You know. Lorraine waved her hand dismissively as if Julie's work was nothing more than a publicity stunt. Julie leaned forward, her voice steady but firm. Lorraine, I have spent the last 3 years working with these children. I've seen kids who couldn't read a single sentence transform into confident young people who love books. This isn't about me feeling good about myself. This is about giving children a chance they wouldn't otherwise have, Lorraine laughed. Actually laughed. And it wasn't a friendly sound. Oh, please, you're an actress, Julie. You get paid millions to play pretend. Forgive me if I find it a bit rich that you're suddenly concerned about children who can't read. Where were you 20 years ago when this was actually a problem? The atmosphere in the studio shifted dramatically. Bethany Price shifted uncomfortably in her seat, glancing at Marcus as if hoping he would intervene. Marcus kept his eyes down, clearly wanting no part of this confrontation. The producers in the control room were frantically speaking into their headsets, but no one was stopping Lorraine. Julie's hands gripped the arms off the sofa. 20 years ago, I was working. I was raising my own children. I was building a career so that I could be in a position to help others. And I've been helping people quietly for decades. Lorraine. I don't parade it around for cameras like some people do with their morning talk shows. That heat a nerve. Lorraine's smile disappeared entirely, replaced by something cold and mean. Excuse me, are you suggesting that my show, my program that reaches millions of viewers every single morning, is somehow less valuable than your little reading club? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating a fact. Your show talks about fashion, celebrity gossip, and whatever scandal is trending on social media. My little reading club, as you call it, is changing children's lives. So yes, Lorraine, I do think there's a difference in value there. Bethany Price finally found her voice, though. It was shaky. Perhaps maybe we should talk about Julie's new film project. I think she has something coming out soon, doesn't she? Lorraine shot Bethany a look that could have melted steel. Bethany, I don't recall asking for your input. If I wanted to talk about Julie's film, I would have brought it up. Marcus Chin finally looked up from his notes, his face flushed. Lorraine, I think what Bethany is trying to say is that perhaps we've gotten off track here. Julie eyesore guessed. And Marcus, do shut up, Lorraine snapped, not even looking at him. She kept her eyes locked on Julie. You know what your problem is, Julie. You think you're better than everyone else? You think because you've won some awards and been in some successful films that you can waltz onto my show and lecture me about what's valuable and what isn't? Julie stood up. The movement was so sudden that everyone in the studio jumped slightly. She looked down at Lorraine with an expression that was equal parts disappointment and anger.
My problem?
Let me tell you what my problem is, Lorraine. My problem is that I came here in good faith, hoping to use your platform to help children. Instead, I'm sitting here being mocked and belittled by someone who's clearly more interested in creating drama than having an actual conversation. I have never claimed to be better than anyone, but I will not sit here and be disrespected like this. Lorraine's face turned red. Sit back down, Julie. We're in the middle of a live broadcast. No, I don't think I will. You know what's interesting, Lorraine? You talk about my charity work being performative, but this entire show is performative. You smile and laugh and pretend to care about your guests. But the moment someone doesn't play along with your little game, the real you comes out, and the real you is cruel. The silence that followed was deafening. Bethany Price had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Marcus Chen was staring at Julie with something that looked like admiration mixed with terror. The crew members were frozen, unsure whether to cut to commercial or keep rolling. Lorraine stood up now too, her voice rising. How dare you come onto my show? My show that I've built over years of hard work, and insult me like this. Who do you think you are? I'm someone who actually cares about making a difference. I'm someone who doesn't need to tear others down to feel important. And I'm someone who's done with this conversation. Julie started to move her microphone, her hands steady despite the tension. You walk off this set and you'll never work in British television again. Do you understand me? Lorraine's voice had taken on a threatening quality that made even the crew uncomfortable. Julie paused, microphone in hand, and looked at Lorraine with a calm that was somehow more devastating than any angry outburst could have been. Lorraine, I've been working in this industry for over 40 years. I've worked with some of the greatest directors, actors, and producers in the world. Your threats mean absolutely nothing to me. What does mean something is my integrity, and I won't compromise that by staying here another second. She set the microphone down on the sofa carefully as if it was made of glass. Then she looked directly into the camera, speaking to the viewer sat home. To anyone watching who wants to know more about the Children's Literacy Program, please visit our website. These kids deserve better than to have their story overshadowed by this nonsense. Gather off my set now. Lorraine shouted, her face purple with rage, but Julie was already walking away, her head held high. As she passed Marcus and Bethany, Marcus whispered, "Good for you." It was barely audible, but Julie heard it and gave him the smallest nod of acknowledgement. Lorraine was still shouting as Julie disappeared behind the cameras. This is my show, mine. How does she walk off like that? Someone get her back here right now. A producer finally ran onto the set, whispering urgently to Lorraine. But Lorraine wasn't having it. She turned to the camera, her composure completely shattered. Well, there you have it, folks. Dame Julie Walters showing her true colors, walking off my show because she can't handle a few honest questions. Some professional she is. Bethany Price, clearly trying to salvage something from the wreckage, spoke up. I think perhaps there was a misunderstanding. Julie seemed genuinely passionate about her charity work. And Bethany, if you say one more word defending that woman, you can follow her out the door. Lorraine snapped. Marcus set down his papers with a deliberate movement that drew everyone's attention. Actually, Lorraine, I think I might do just that. Lorraine's eyes went wide. What did you just say? I've been on this show for 3 years, and I've watched you treat guests with disrespect more times than I can count. But I've never seen anything like what just happened. You attacked Julie for doing charity work. You mocked her for trying to help children. And when she stood up for herself, you threatened her career. That's not journalism, that's bullying. The camera operators didn't know where to point their cameras. The control room was in chaos, and Lorraine Kelly was standing in the middle of her own studio watching her show fall apart in real time. Marcus, you're being ridiculous. Sit down right now, Lorraine said, but her voice had lost its commanding edge now. She just sounded desperate. Marcus stood up, removing his own microphone. I'm not being ridiculous. I'm being honest for the first time in a long time. And you know what? It feels pretty good. He looked at Bethany coming. Bethany looked between Lorraine and Marcus, her face torn. But then she saw the expression on Lorraine's face, that mixture of rage and entitlement that had been building throughout the interview. and she made her decision. Yes, yes, I'm coming. Both of you are fired. Do you hear me? Fired? Lorraine screamed as Marcus and Bethany walked off the set together. The producer ran up to Lorraine again, this time practically begging her to cut to a commercial. But Lorraine was past the point of listening. She turned back to the camera, her hair slightly disheveled, her makeup running from thestress and anger. This is what happens when you try to have real conversations on television. Everyone's too sensitive these days. You can't say anything without someone getting offended. Julie Walters is supposed to be a professional, but she walks off my show like a child throwing a tantrum. And my own panelists, people I gave opportunities to. They stabbed me in the back on live television. A voice from off camera, one of the producers, finally called out loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Lorraine, we need to go to commercial now. But Lorraine wasn't done. No, I'm not going to commercial. This is my show and I'll decide when we go to commercial. Everyone wants to tell me what to do, but this is my show. The cameras finally cut away. But not before millions of viewers had witnessed the complete meltdown of one of Britain's most popular daytime hosts. The studio descended into chaos as producers rushed the stage. Crew members stood around in stunned silence and Lorraine Kelly sat back down on her sofa, finally realizing what had just happened. Backstage, Julie Walters was already gathering her things from the dressing room. Marcus and Bethany found her there, both of them looking shaken but relieved. Dame Walters, we just wanted to say, Marcus began, but Julie held up her hand. Please call me Julie. And you don't need to say anything. You both did what you thought was right, and that takes courage. I'm proud of you both. Bethany had tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry about what happened out there. The way she spoke to you, it was horrible. You should have said something sooner. Julie smiled kindly at her. You said something when it mattered. That's what counts. She picked up her bag and headed for the exit. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with a group of 7-year-olds who actually want to hear about literacy programs. As Julie walked out of the ITV studios, her phone was already buzzing with messages of support. Other actors, directors, producers, even other talk show hosts were reaching out praising her for standing up to Lorraine. The clip of the confrontation would be online within minutes, and by the end of the day it would be viewed millions of times. Back in the studio, Lorraine sat alone on her orange sofa, the same sofa where she'd hosted hundreds of guests over the years, the same sofa where she'd built her reputation as Britain's friendly morning host. But now that sofa felt different. It felt like the scene of a crime, evidence of the moment when she let her ego and her need for control destroy everything she'd worked for. One of the senior producers, a woman named Sarah, who'd been with the show since the beginning, approached cautiously. Lorraine, we need to talk about what just happened. Lorraine looked up at her, and for a moment Sarah saw something that might have been regret flicker across her face, but then it was gone, replaced by defiance. What just happened is that I was undermined by my guest and my own staff. What just happened is that I was treated with complete disrespect on my own show. Sarah sighed, looking tired. Lorraine, you attacked a beloved actress for doing charity work. You mocked her passion for helping children, and when she defended herself, you threatened her career. That footage is going to be everywhere by tonight. We need to figure out how to handle this. Handle what? I asked her some tough questions. That's my job. If she can't handle it, that's her problem, not mine. Those weren't tough questions, Lorraine, that was an attack. And Marcus and Bethany walking off, that makes it clear that this wasn't just about Julie being sensitive. This was about you crossing a line. Lorraine stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. This is my show. If people don't like how I run it, they can watch something else. That's exactly what they're going to do, Sarah said quietly. That's exactly what they're going to do. In those 39 seconds that started everything, Lorraine Kelly had made a choice. She had chosen to belittle a guest who came on her show in good faith. She had chosen to mock charity work that was genuinely helping children. She had chosen ego over empathy, control over kindness. And in making those choices, she had shown everyone watching exactly who she really was. Julie Walters, meanwhile, was already at the community center in Manchester, sitting in a circle with a group of children who were excited to tell her about the books they'd been reading. She'd dealt with difficult directors, demanding co-stars, and brutal reviews over her long career. One hostel talk show host was nothing compared to that. What mattered was the work, the real work of making a difference. And as she listened to a young girl proudly read from her favorite story, Julie smiled, knowing that this moment, this connection, was worth far more than any television appearance could ever be. She hadn't come to that studio looking for a fight. She'd come hoping to shine a light on something good. But when pushed, when disrespected and mocked on live television, she had stood her ground with grace and dignity. That's what made her the good guy. Not because she walked off the set, not because she called out Lorraine's behavior, but because through it all she never lost sight of what really mattered. The children, the work, the genuine desire to make the world a little bit better. Lorraine Kelly had her bright lights and her orange sofa and her millions of viewers. But in those 39 seconds she had shown that beneath the smile and the warmth was someone who would attack a guest for trying to help others. Someone who would threaten careers and demand loyalty while offering none in return. Someone who, when faced with genuine passion and purpose, could only respond with mockery and contempt. The confrontation had been brief, but its impact would last far longer. Because sometimes all it takes is 39 seconds to reveal someone's true character. And on that morning, in front of millions of viewers, two characters had been revealed. One was a woman who dedicated her time and energy to helping children learn to read. The other was a woman who thought that work was quaint and performative. History would remember this moment not as the day Julie Walters walked off a talk show, but as the day she stood up for what mattered. And sometimes standing up means walking.